Come on in, good people. We're going to talk audits. Let's talk audits, right? My small business owners, particularly my real estate investors who claim real estate professional status, we're talking audits. Come on in, everyone. Welcome. We're talking audits. I got your attention. So for those of you who are just joining me, I am a former revenue agent in the IRS in large business and international division. I have over 20 years in audit, accounting, and tax, 13 in the IRS. I'm a real estate investor, an accidental investor, and I'm a business owner, right? And so I want to come, on in and talk about the truth about audits. And before I do this, I want you to go ahead and click the link in my bio and follow me on YouTube. Subscribe to my email list. You know, the powers that be might automatically decide this video violates terms and conditions and community rules or whatever have you. You know how that goes. So I want to make sure you're following me in other places, right? TikTok at the Moneyista, the _Moneyista. I also have another Instagram handle, _the Moneyista_. That is my backup for the last time they took my page. Okay. So, you know, I decided to come on here and talk about this, as controversial as it might be, because I think it gives perspective to my business owners. It gives perspective to my W-2 earners. It gives perspective to, you know, the lay person, right? And so I want to talk about how I was audited. Now, as a new employee of the agency, we are all required to have an employee audit. Okay, an employee, you have to have so I wasn't picked. I was just because I was a new employee, and they have to do it usually within the first couple of years or so. No biggie. And you also have to have a background check, and I have that. I still have the letter. I cleared it, and I also have all of my performance appraisals that say outstanding, just in case somebody don't like this video. And just be sure to follow me on all platforms, because I don't know where this video is going to go and what's going to happen as a result. But I'm going to spill the beans. And so this is when I first found out life ain't fair on that side, right? So, you know, I was a regular W-2 earner, and I was having my employee audit, which is my W-2, and I had had some business income because before I started at the IRS, I was preparing tax returns and things of that nature, right? And so they audited my last 2 years' tax returns, and what I found out is that the division that audits, you know, regular people and small businesses is not the same as the division that audits large businesses, right? Very different environment, if you will, in my opinion, right? So before we start, I have to say this is what happened based upon my opinion, so I can qualify the story and to give you guys an in as to how this goes, okay? So I went down to the office that does, you know, audits for regular folks, right? And I noticed there was a different environment down there, you know, and the people in certain divisions, at the time, they weren't required to have a lot of formal education. Now you are, you know, if you look at a listing in the governmental sector, now it's a little bit different. I was trained by people who never had an accounting degree, right? When I came in, because when they were hired, it was like 1902, right? Wink, wink, it was a joke. So there were very different requirements. And so you can tell that a lot of these examiners in this space were not very formally educated, right? Maybe they were required to have a couple of accounting classes, and they were operating under a manager. It was very, very non-formulated. And coming from private sector, I was very detailed. You know, I was very by the book, right? Very much so, cross your T's, dot your I's, because in private sector, if you know, you know, right? You can't report to the VP and the, you know, CFO and things of that nature in a sloppy, informal manner. You got to have every base covered, and that's where I was coming from. So this was a different experience, right? And so the examiner wasn't well versed in grammar, if I may. And I remember their names. I remember everybody's name. And you know, he asked me about all my expenses, and I told him I kept immaculate records. And I left, right? And I was a little uneasy. And as I was walking out, I heard him say something very unethical, but of course they think that nobody else is listening, but those walls are thin, whatever have you. So I got a call and I got an adjustment. Okay. He had disallowed all of my expenses. And he says, well, it's not really a business. And I said, oh, really? He says, yeah. I said, well, it was the only income I had for this period because I wasn't working, right? And it was, in fact, the first 4 months of the year, 4 or 5 months of the year, where I wasn't working. I had left my previous job and got hired by the IRS. So I said, I had no other source of income. So what do you mean? I wasn't living with anybody. I had my own apartment, right? I wasn't being claimed as a dependent. And so I fought back a little, and he was a little indignant. And I could tell that he just wanted a number, right? Allegedly, right? They just wanted a number. And I heard the number that they wanted. So it was clear to me that sometimes they just want a number. They don't care how they get it. It's unfair, but this is what it is. And so, of course, I did not agree, right? And just for you guys out there who are listening, you don't have to agree with the audit adjustment. You can say you don't agree. That is your right. And you'll go to appeals, right? So I went to appeals, I had an appointment, and I went in front of the appeals officer. And the appeals officer pulls out the folder of my paperwork for the exam. And the first thing he says is, all right, what do you want? I said, I want to go through the paperwork. I want to go through my adjustments. He says, well, that's not what I'm here for. He says, well, what do you want? Let's come to some kind of agreement. I said, no, I'm not coming to an agreement. I want to go through the paperwork. Right? This is appeals. I want to appeal the items that were of contention on my exam, on my return. He wasn't having it. He was like, listen, this is what it is. I can offer you to take the penalties off. I said, no, I'm not signing that, right? I have proof. I wasn't working anywhere. I had no W-2. You can see that from my tax return. And, I had my own address, right? I was an independent. So this is not a hobby, right? And at the time, I purchased professional tax software. Nobody buys $1,000 tax software for a hobby, right? I had a PTIN. I had all of that stuff. So I was like, this is a little fishy. Okay. So if you don't agree with appeals, you can go to tax court. Now, here's the gotcha. And so I said, well, I'm going to court, right? True Aries that I am. I'll fight. Okay. So I went to tax court in Long Island at the time. It was way back when. I don't know if they're still there in that office. I believe I went to Garden City somewhere. I don't even know. And before, they heard me, there was a mediator that came in, I guess some kind of paralegal, I don't know, somebody. And she says, my job is to try and, solve this before it gets in front of a judge. And I was like, well, no, I'm not solving it unless I'm able to really present my argument. I said, the appeals officer didn't want to hear it. I said, the examiner didn't want to hear it, and it was very clear that I was up against, I guess, not an exact, formula, but more of a system. And needless to say, everything went fine. Okay. I'm not afraid to fight because ultimately nobody wants you to go in front of a judge. The judge doesn't want to see you for what they may determine as pennies, right? The real money is in the large corporations. So I knew that. I knew it wasn't wrong, right? I'm fine. I was like, no, I'm fine to go in front of a judge. That's fine. No, I don't need anybody with me. I have all of my paperwork, right? I made it very clear about my background and where I came from. I'm okay to fight. Okay. So everything went well. Okay. I left out of there. I was fine. And I happened to tell my superiors, about the process. And I was like, this is really unprofessional. These people clearly don't have an accounting degree. They don't have a formal degree, a bachelor's or whatever have you. I don't know, but they're not really required to have the full education. And that's what I want to impress upon all of you. Okay. You will not always go in front of someone that is formally educated or groomed within corporate or private, who's professional, who understands what's going on. Sometimes you'll get the old timers, right? And so I say this to say, a lot of people will say, well, I heard you can do this. I heard you can do that. Yeah, you can. But if you get audited, even if you're legitimate, you might get a bad examiner on a good day, a good examiner on a bad day. You might get somebody who's like, all right, no big deal. And then their manager's like, no, I want $5,000 out of this return. I've heard it. Okay, I've heard it. And it's very unfair. And that's why I teach with strictness, right? I teach with books and records that lay the foundation so that you can say, nope, I'll go right in front of whoever, okay? Because ultimately, they didn't want to hear anything. The appeals officer didn't want to hear anything. He just wanted a number. He just wanted to negotiate like this was, a criminal case. Like, I'll give you probation. No. I'm not in the wrong, right? And so I knew right then and there, pulling fish on pulley. I knew right then and there what I was dealing with. I was dealing with a system that was very unfair to the low man on the totem pole. And so that's one of the reasons why I started the Tax Strategies Mastermind, because I'm like, that's not right. Right, that is not right. And P.S., when I was walking out, there was a woman, an older woman, and she was like a nurse, and she said she doesn't understand the adjustment. Okay, and she's like, I don't understand this. Why? I said, did you sign anything? She said, no. I said, don't sign anything. Right now, I can't represent you because I work for the IRS, but go get a representative, and that is another barrier. Okay, you have to pay for representation, and if you want real good representation, it's going to cost a lot of money, right? And they know. People know, the system knows that you can't afford it and that you'll get so afraid that you'll just sign off on things, right? And again, this is why I'm very hard on my students about record keeping and documentation. I don't care about strategy unless you lay down the groundwork. Okay, I can teach you strategy all day long, but if they decide they don't want, they don't want to let legitimate stuff go, they'll find anything to pick at. And so there was an article yesterday, and I talked about it on live, about the IRS closing the gap between taxes paid and taxes owed. Okay, and specifically the title was targets high earners, right? And I think the number was about 1 million. Okay, now in the great grand scheme of things, you can have a business owner make $1 million, but if they have 600,000 in expenses, right, or 650,000 or 700,000 in expenses, they've made 300,000. So their profit margin a lot of times for small businesses is not that large, particularly in the beginning because they're still small. So you're being targeted for your revenue, but not your profit, right? Sometimes it's a gain. It's a gain, unfortunately. Again, you can get an examiner that is just, and I've had examiners even in my division who were just gung-ho and just wanted to get something. It was like a ego trip. Even when there was nothing. I've worked with them and I've said, listen, this is legitimate and this is an ordinary and necessary business expense. You just don't understand it, right? And these are people who come from other countries. We had a lot of non-citizens or non-US born people working in the division at that time, and they necessarily didn't understand certain things. So I would explain it to this one person, and she just would not let up, right? And so I remember these experiences because sometimes it's not about you. Sometimes your business is legit. Sometimes somebody just has a chip on their shoulder. It's their way of proving their position. Okay? So you can be legitimate in a lot of things, but I'm very strict and stringent on how you document and what tactics you use, because a lot of times messy transactions are a target. And that's a door opener for you to go through an audit for 9 to 12 months, right? And unfortunately, again, the lower on the totem pole you are, as far as being examined, because you have, your people who deal with wage earners, withholdings, and you have your people who deal with small business and self-employed, and then you have your people who deal with large business, right? And then you have your people who deal with high net worth individuals. And the lower on the totem pole in income, the lower the qualifications were necessary to hire these people back in the day. So when you get in front of somebody, they've probably been with the service for many, 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 many moons, right? Again, when I came in, the people that trained me didn't have degrees, right? I had a master's and they didn't even have a bachelor's. They just came in because all you had to have is, 12 accounting credits or a certificate, right? Things change, right? Now you might be required to have it, and I was required to have a master's and 5 to 7 years experience / CPA to interview for the position, right? To get hired. But my superiors who had been there since before computers were being used were not, right? They were very, very old school, very, scratch your back, I scratch mine. Even when I did large entities, You know, I used to say all the time, you'll never find the bodies. They're just negotiating what they think is a win. So a lot of times it's not about technicality and numbers. Sometimes it's just maneuvering, allegedly, right? Save this video, share it, because I'm sure somebody's gonna, you know, cancel me or try and cancel me, but I have to speak it because I don't think people understand why I don't do deduction hype. Okay, I don't do deduction hype. I've heard them say, I want 10,000 out of this return. I want 5,000 out of this return. Okay, it is what it is. Again, it's not fair, but it is the truth. And one day, someday, there's going to be former examiners that come out in unison and say, yep, yep. So I guess I'll be the whistleblower. I'll be the target, the X on my back. If y'all don't see me, come looking for me. But, you know, in all honesty, it is what it is, right? You have a mix of the new people coming in the old school ways. It is what it is, right? I've heard it. I've seen it. It's not fair. It's unjust. And it's a game. It's a game. It is a game, right? You don't walk into an exam with your phone out going, you know, hey, because I don't think they allow that. But it's the truth, right? Now, I want to say there are some wonderful examiners out there. There's some wonderful examiners who will go to bat for you and be like, come on, this is stupid, right? And sometimes you have an examiner fight and the manager is like, no, or, you know, no, we want to pursue this. And the examiner's like, I don't really think this is justifiable, right? So if you don't agree with your adjustment, don't sign. I'm not signing. I don't agree. I want to go to appeals. What's the process, right? And you have taxpayer rights. Notice Pub 1 and Publication 1 and Notice 609. Okay, go get yourself a representative, right? If you're a legitimate person, you have no problems getting a representative. Okay, if you know you're doing something dirty, pay your fees and move about. Don't fight. But if you're legitimate, I want to encourage you to fight. A lot of times people don't fight because they're afraid of the hierarchy. If you're in the right, you're in the right. Okay, present your case, have a representative. And if you're in a tax strategies mastermind, the way you'll do your books and records, the way I teach you, your representative will be like, this is easy peasy, piece of cake. Okay, deductions aren't the flex, it's the documentation. All right. How do you obtain a representative? You get yourself an enrolled agent, right? A lot of times enrolled agents are former IRS agents like myself. They know the process. They know what somebody's looking for. You know, they can tell you, hey, you got to keep better books and records. It's going to be a hard fight, right? I'm here to catch you in the beginning, right? I'm here for preventative measures. I'm here to catch you in the beginning, so before you even get in front of an audit, right? It is what it is. And the way that they're going to close the gap between taxes owed and taxes paid are by targeting a specific group of people. And to me, that's unjust, right? If you want to close the gap between taxes paid and taxes owed, you target everybody, right? From the top to the bottom, right? Non-compliance is non-compliance no matter who you are. But if you're targeting high earners by your own threshold, you're actually targeting a group of people who might be high earners or so, but they might be vulnerable, right, to the process, right? There are some legitimate business owners. They have a lot of expenses, right? And you might have an examiner go, nope, I'm going to strip your expenses and tax you on the full 1 million, right? That is what it is. And I'm talking about the people who are legitimate. And I always encourage people to get a hold of your own books and records, to know where your tax liability lies, to know what your tax account looks like. You know, you can get your transcript online, right? Even if you have an accountant handle your taxes, you can get your tax transcript online at the irs.gov website. So just always stay abreast of your options, right? Don't be afraid of the hierarchy. Go get a representative. There's a list, and on there, I believe the IRS provides a list. Go to your CPA. When you get your taxes prepared by a CPA or anybody, ask them if they'll represent you in an audit. Okay, they'll sign off on it. Okay. Someone says, my tax professional and I appealed because my auditor was clueless. We squashed it on a conference call with the IRS attorney before my official tax court date. Yeah. A lot of the times, in the divisions below the large business division, they're not very knowledgeable. And I'm sorry, this is not to target those who actually got a degree in accounting, who know what they're doing. I'm talking about the people that are still probably old school, didn't need an education, don't understand accounting, don't understand anything, right? So, what's the first step when you get flagged? Do they send you a letter asking a question? When you get selected for an audit, out of all of the selection process, you get the letter. I believe it's 2205 if you're in large business. It might be another variation if you're a small business owner saying you've been selected for an audit, and they'll provide a phone number for you to call, and then they'll ask you they'll send you an information document request, and you'll provide the standard information like your books and records, your general ledger, financial statements, all that good stuff for them to review your return. And then they'll start asking you more questions based upon that first request. And then they have to provide the tax code under which we're requesting the information. They just can't go fishing, right? So, and that's the way I was trained. That's the way it was when I left. It's probably still that way. If I'm looking into your income, I have to put at the bottom of the request, section 61, gross income defined, why I'm requesting it. Okay. To save the video, you would click that share button, and at the bottom it says copy link, and then you would copy the link. And then if you have Insta downloader, you can download the video on your phone. Let's see. And this is just, this isn't to bash the government. This is to inform you guys, right? There's a lot of misinformation out there, and there's a lot of non-information out there. Sometimes it's not you. Sometimes you just got caught up in the rapture. Sometimes you just got a good examiner on a bad day, a bad examiner on a good day, right? It is what it is. Things are not always fair. There are things that you cannot get away with that a large business may get away with because the examiners are coming from a different background. The large corporations have a ton of attorneys. By the time you fight, they paid you more in your salary than the adjustment is worth. Unfortunately, it's not fair, right? It's not fair. It's not just. You can have two people with the same issue, and somebody in Florida, somebody in California, and somebody in maybe Michigan, and all three people have the same issue, and two people get off and one person does not because of the examiner. It is what it is. Some people get a hard time. Some people, examiners are people. Sometimes you never know what bias they may have against you, and there's nothing you can do about it. They may just hate you for making $1 million. You don't know that, right? You don't know what biases somebody holds against you. It's unfortunate, but it is the truth. Anything with human capital, humans, is fallible. Okay, because they have their own brains, they have their own feelings, they have their own prejudices, they have their own biases, the subjectives, and it's unfortunate, but it's the truth. So I'm just here to make sure you understand. Being legitimate and being just as non-messy as you can on your tax returns when you're trying to operate within the tax code and build your wealth up and build your business up is very important. So things like people saying, oh, I want to rent my home to myself. No, you cannot do it. What about the Augusta rule? I don't teach that. It's just not, it's not highly impactful. And it's highly audited because they know that that's what people are going to go for, right? It is what it is. I teach things that can be justified with documentation, that are clear, cut in the code, and that have a high impact on your bottom line. And that there's no gray area in documentation. Okay? Just for purposes of building your wealth, it's so important to operate in a straight line. Okay, when you get to be the Elon Musks of the world, you might be able to smooth some stuff. and nobody really cares, or maybe they just, it's ordinary for you where it wouldn't be ordinary for you. You know, as a smaller business owner, it's very important to understand where you stand. Okay. Let me see if we have any questions. Just knowing when to put on the gloves and take them off. Yeah. Listen, it's a customer service kind of thing, right? You can get an a-hole, you can get a wonderful person. Okay. Let's see. Any questions? I prefer the simplest way of moving within the tax code, right? Can't fight me on rent. I collected rent. I have a lease. I have the bank account. You see the monthly payments come in every month, right? I get depreciation. That's an automatic. You can't fight me and tell me I can't take depreciation if it's a rental, right? And I've submitted rental income. Okay. I document my real estate professional hours. Okay. My cost segregation study is done by a third-party firm, so it's not like I make up the numbers. There's no conflict of interest, and they provide their own audit support. So I go for things that stand strong in an audit. Business ownership. Can't fight, you know, an advertising expense. Without advertising, I get no sales, right? Can't fight certain things. Can't fight my web space hosting or my marketing team, right? I go for things that you don't have to have a conversation about with an examiner. And that if I ever get in front of a judge, I can go, really? Really? We're here. So I just want you guys to be prepared. I always teach from a strong foundation, that you don't panic. You know, people who don't understand, they start to panic, and then they start signing away, and they go, I don't know, I just didn't want to get in trouble. No. They smell fear, the wolves come out. It's unfortunate. Some people, this is their form of power, right? Like any law enforcement, right? It's just a different form of law enforcement. You got good people, you got bad people. Okay, let's see. Don't all companies get audited? No. The most consistent thing about the IRS is their inconsistency. Correct. Let's see. And what can you do if you disagree with an audit? You can go to appeals. Publication 1 and notice 609. You can go to appeals. But the appeals officer, you can be a good appeals officer on a bad day, a bad appeals officer on a good day. They're still human. Okay? Yep, be precise, forget the nice. Yep. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for joining in and for listening to my rant. Again, please follow me on all platforms in case they decide I violated some terms and conditions in this post. Or fact checkers, or whatever have you. There's a link in my bio for my YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube. Also, there's a link in my bio to get on my email list. It's all going to be under www.themoneynista.com. That's in the bio. That's the link in the bio. Follow me on TikTok at _moneynista. Yeah. Make sure, and I have another Instagram handle, which is _themoneynista_. That's my backup page. I haven't touched it in a while, but if I'm going to do videos like these, you guys need to go ahead and follow that page. Follow both pages. Do you do your own taxes? Of course. I'm an accountant. I just finished my business taxes today, and they're due March 15th. So I just finished filing today, and they were accepted. So I'm all done. I use TurboTax. I teach with TurboTax, and I use TurboTax myself. So I teach people how to keep their books and records, what strategies to use, and how to implement them, and to track in real time, so that you know your tax liability every month. You're never lost. Thanks for sharing. We are here for you. Thank you for showing up. Again, share, and like, share, and share alike. Okay, download, share. I don't know how long they're gonna let this video stay up. Every other week it's somebody else. So it is what it is. And I've kept all my outstanding evaluations just in case. I kept my documentation in case somebody tried to slander me. All my evals are outstanding. Okay. I teach step by step how to plan, and as a result of planning, you learn how to input and prepare. Multi-member LLCs and S Corps and C Corps are due March 15th. Single member LLCs and Schedule Cs are due April 15th. Okay. Any other questions, guys? Well, I want to thank all of you for joining in because, you know, this is a very important discussion that nobody talks about. Audits suck, and you're not guaranteed a favorable outcome just because you are legitimate. Sometimes you're fighting something that's not there. You know, sometimes you're fighting an intangible. So, and unfortunately, the checks and balances are not always there, right? You got to get a third-party representative. You got to get a power of attorney, right? You have to fill out Form 2848 and have your power of attorney signed to represent you, and they will handle the audit. And if you keep your books and records like the Money Needs to tells you to in the Tax Strategies Mastermind, your representative is going to be like, wow, you just made this that much easier. Okay? And I mean like 100% easier. All right. So with that being said, if you guys have no more questions, again, please share, like, pass it around. It's very important. You're welcome. Start your business. Don't be afraid. Somebody out there is your customer, your client, your student, right? Somebody likes what you have to offer. Master it, be professional, provide value. Okay? And make sure whatever you're offering comes back tenfold to your consumer, right? My students, they save way more than they pay for my course every year. Okay? Every year. So, with that being said, for those of you just joining, I'm going to go ahead and save this live for a little bit. You have some time to share it, and you have some time to download it and keep it just in case they knock me out the algorithm. Okay, you can expense your car under Section 179 if you use your vehicle for over 50% of the time for business. And if you're smart, you will have another vehicle available for personal use. When you have only one vehicle for business and personal use, it can get funky. Nobody tells you that, but that's the truth. Okay, again, there's a lot of things that people don't tell you to avoid excessive questioning. Okay. And you can use it for vehicles over 6,000 pounds and for vehicles 6,000 pounds and under. Okay, there's just a little difference in the expense. All right, so thank you all for joining in. Go ahead and like, save, share, and I will probably put this up on YouTube, but please go ahead and join my YouTube. If you know somebody that's following me, tell them follow my YouTube. I've got to transition a lot of my stuff, a lot of my followers into multiple platforms. All right. So thank you for joining, and I'll go ahead and I will save this for you guys. And happy filing season.